Hello and welcome to today's Medicinal Monday episode. I'm Dr. Susanna Alter.
And I'm Dr. Benjamin.
And we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
And today we are talking about your gallbladder, which you may or may not have. It has really come to our awareness over the course of our practice how many people have their gallbladders removed over the course of their lives. And of course, we know that those people can still maintain optimal health, and they often do so on a whole food plant-based lifestyle, of course. But today we're going to be talking about how to care for your gallbladder if you have one, but also how to eat and live and care for your gallbladder that may not even be existing. So it is an important topic because that little organ of ours actually serves a purpose, even if it's not there. And, getting right to the heart of it, if we don't have our gallbladder, really what that means is that our liver is taking on the responsibility, the tasks that the gallbladder was doing for us. So it's even more of a reason to care more optimally for our liver, which we talk about so often here at Alter Health.
Yeah. So how about we start off the conversation by talking about the purpose of the gallbladder, why we have a gallbladder?
Sure. It's pretty straightforward and simple. It holds the bile that our liver creates in order to metabolize fats predominantly. Bile also supports the detoxification processes. When our liver creates bile, it also supports the breakdown and shuttling out and, holding on to a lot of the toxins that are also being broken down by the liver. But that bile that is being created by the liver can then go to the bile sac. That's kind of the nickname of the gallbladder, that bile sac there, and that holds onto the bile until we eat a meal. And then it gets a good squeeze and it goes through the bile duct into the intestines in order to mix with all the contents of our food and emulsify the fats so that they can properly be digested and whatnot.
Yeah, it's convenient to have a gallbladder because whenever we do eat fat, we've got a great supply that's already made up, just waiting for us, and we can just reach into the bile sac and have a little serving of it. It kind of reminds me of like when we bulk prepare, for example, like a salad dressing. When it comes time to make a salad, it's like, yes, I already have the salad dressing already made, so I can just top it with that versus having to go through the process of making it all over again.
That's actually really probably a beautiful analogy, and that's kind of what the liver is doing. It's making the salad dressing. And yeah, we like to make a good amount of salad dressing so that we can store it and whip up our salad
really easily.
really quickly when we need to, and not go through the process of getting all the ingredients back in order and whipping up the salad dressing on the spot. But I guess one would say, on this analogy, one would say, oh, well, I like fresh salad dressing, so maybe I don't want or need a storage container for my salad dressing. So the fact is, when it comes to our bile, the stored bile is just as yummy and tasty as the fresh bile that's created by the liver.
I don't know about tasty, but it's just as effective at breaking down the fat and helping in that detoxification that happens.
Right. So that's what the gallbladder is doing. And it's really just clear and obvious, and all the science points us in the same direction, that in order to optimally care for the health of our gallbladder, really the most important thing is there's a few things, but the most important factor is being mindful of our dietary fat content. And the best thing to do is to eliminate processed foods, especially oils, of course, which is pure fat, as well as animal products, which are inherently going to be higher in fat as compared to our plant-based products, right? So that leads us to whole food plant-based eating for the gallbladder, whether or not you've got one.
Yes, because we've said it million times, and we'll keep saying it, that a whole food plant-based diet is naturally low in fat. When we focus on whole grains, legumes, fruits, vegetables, and a reasonable amount of nuts and seeds and other kind of fat-rich fruits like, avocado and coconut, the lifestyle is relatively low in fat naturally.
Then the other thing that's going to be in our favor, of course, in our whole food plant-based lifestyle that's supportive of digestive health, liver health, detoxification, and gallbladder health is the fiber content in our plant foods. Of course, plants are the only foods that contain fiber. You know that by now. And that fiber content helps the kind of assimilation of our fats. For example, if we're just putting oil into our mouths, of course, we probably are not spoonfulling oil, but if we put oil in our mouths via salad dressing or sauteed vegetables or on a piece of bread or pasta or whatever it is, then that oil is going to be kind of more of a shock to the system and require a surge of bile release from the gallbladder/liver. And whereas if we get the fat in the context of a whole food, even if we're eating, quote unquote, a higher fat meal with olives or cashews or nuts and seeds, those foods that are whole foods are going to be consumed, of course, along with dietary fiber and proteins and carbohydrates and all the other phytonutrients that support the natural breakdown, digestion, absorption of all the nutrients from those whole plant foods.
Exactly. And actually, when you were talking about oil, you reminded me, Ben, of this trend that we're not fans of, called the gallbladder flush, where you actually do drink a bunch of oil. You mix a bunch of oil with lemon juice and maybe some orange juice and garlic. And what that's supposed to do is flush the gallbladder and essentially, kind of just squeeze out all the whatever is contained in there. But it's actually a risky practice because it can actually stimulate the gallbladder so much that it might actually stimulate the passing of a gallstone, which can then get stuck in the bile duct.
So maybe we can talk about really the issues of gallbladder health and what leads to gallbladder issues, and then of course the end result of that is usually getting your gallbladder removed. So you talked about stones, and what precedes stones is sometimes referred to as sludge in the gall bile tract, bile duct. That sludge and really that gallbladder just creating lots of bile and releasing lots of bile and just being called upon continuously sets the setting for that sludge, which can lead to gallstones, which is crystallization forming in the gall bile sac. And then, like you said, if we do eat a high fat meal and the gallbladder is kind of stressed in that capacity, then those stones can become dislodged from the bile sac and get stuck in the bile duct. And that is known as cholecystitis because...
Isn't it called cholelithiasis or something like that?
Yeah, cholelithiasis is the formation of the gallstone, and then the cholecystitis is when the gallbladder itself becomes inflamed as a result of the bile duct being. That's the most common reason of cholecystitis, is the bile duct being obstructed, which is what causes that extreme, excruciating right upper quadrant pain, right? That pain that I've never had. I've never had a gallbladder attack, but I've heard a lot of people who have, and that's where they feel it right underneath the right rib cage there, and that's where your gallbladder is. And that's what's happening, is it's kind of spasming, and it can be, I would say, maybe like a life-threatening issue, a reason to go to the hospital. And then the treatment of that, if you're a surgeon, is very easy. You just go in there and snip it out because, hey, we don't really need it. It's helpful, like we already addressed, but we don't really need it. So yeah, just get rid of it, right? And a lot of people do have questions like, oh yeah, I've had gallstones. Should I get my gallbladder removed? And that can be done in kind of a preventative sort of way. But really, when we're following a whole food plant-based diet, I would say that it's kind of impossible for that to take place. The gallstones being kind of dislodged and creating that obstruction and leading to cholecystitis. Um, what tends to happen, and we've heard stories, is that those stones that might be in the gallbladder actually
And
naturally,
usually those stones are found incidentally
right.
upon other imaging. People don't necessarily know that they have stones because they don't feel anything.
But what I was gonna say
Sorry,
is that those stones can and do naturally dissolve or shrink, and then they can pass naturally without obstructing the bile duct, and just get flushed right down the toilet.
Yeah, we've heard that from several of our clients who, over the years of eating whole food plant-based, just incidentally on imaging have found that they had stones a few years ago and now the stones are gone. So that's interesting. Of course, in an emergent kind of scenario, eating whole food plant-based isn't going to really help in an emergent scenario where you have to get your gallbladder removed.
It's like if we have a bunch of French fries and a cheeseburger, it's not like we can just have a salad and then all the pain goes away. Right? But if we avoid the French fries and cheeseburger, then we avoid the issues pretty definitively. You don't really hear about whole food plant-based eaters having gallbladder issues. That's for darn sure. Unless, of course, they're susceptible and they go to a restaurant and they indulge in the fried whatever tofu sticks or whatever. That hey, it could probably happen. But there's a question here from Trevor. What's the connection with issues like autoimmune disease and gallbladder health? And I have to admit that I don't really know. The connection between autoimmune issues and gallbladder issues, really, autoimmunity is generally stemming from chronic infections, which you could certainly say that digestive issues are often at the root of immune imbalances that are often at the root of a lot of autoimmune issues. So you could just generalize that digestive health is super key for autoimmune prevention and reversal. But in terms of specific gallbladder, if we don't have a healthy functioning gallbladder, I'm just kind of talking through this now, and we're not going to be digesting our fats that well, that will lead to downstream, digestive imbalances and issues related to the microbiome. And that could set the stage for what you would say is dysbiosis or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or, intestinal inflammation or IBS sorts of syndromes. And that could, therefore be connected with conditions such as autoimmunity. But just kind of spitballing. But it makes sense in my mind.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. And we have another comment from someone who just recently had their gallbladder removed. Oh my goodness. Well, then this next part of the conversation is just for you because, yes, in this episode, we're talking about how to care for your gallbladder, whether you have it or not. And the truth is, you can still have such a great digestive system and overall health, even if you don't have a gallbladder. And that's because, like we mentioned in the very beginning, it's ultimately the liver that creates that bile. And just because you don't have a gallbladder doesn't mean that you can't still, bring that, that the liver will directly then excrete the bile into the intestines for that lipid digestion. Okay. And so if you don't have a gallbladder, then it becomes so much more important to really care for liver health and make sure that the liver is able to stay up on all of its tasks, which it has a lot that it has to do, right?
Yeah. The way I kind of view the liver is that first of all, it's this giant organ that does so many things, right? So many things. The primary thing being kind of general detoxification, quote unquote. A lot of different processes fit under that umbrella. But it's kind of, being such a big organ, it's got, the way I visualize, it's got like different kind of, and this isn't really how it is, but there's different kind of sectors or stations doing different tasks. And if our detoxification pathways are overwhelmed and our liver is kind of going after all these, metabolizing all these things and getting them out of the body, then there's going to be less bandwidth or real estate to do, functions like creating bile necessary for fat digestion or absorption. And the fact is, so we don't want to stress that pathway in the liver more than we need to, which of course we don't when we eat whole plant foods and avoid oils and avoid the high fat animal products, like we already kind of said.
Yes. So the way to eat post gallbladder removal
is the way to eat pre-gallbladder removal.
Yeah, and let's just go through what a whole food plant-based diet is, just in case people are new to it here. Okay, so what it means is eating whole fruits, whole vegetables, whole grains, whole legumes, herbs and seeds. Herbs and spices, nuts and seeds, and leaving out all animal products, which are high in fat, leaving out oil. Oil's a big one you can't forget about. Leaving out also processed carbohydrates, processed grains like flours and processed sugars and other kind of packaged foods like that.
Yeah.
And that's really a whole food plant-based diet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's great is that because this way of eating is also so nutrient dense, it is also naturally detoxifying, so it support liver health in other ways. Other ways that you would want to support liver health, of course, would be to cut back on the alcohol, to cut back on any other kind of
drugs.
Yes, unnecessary drugs.
Well, anything. And when I'm talking about drugs, I'm talking about supplements, herbs, even
herbs. Well, there's a lot of herbs for the liver.
There are, but everything that is an exogenous foreign compound requires the liver to process, especially, of course, pharmaceutical medications, heavy metals that might be, injected in the body and stuff like that.
Cleaning up your environment, cleaning up your household products and your body care products, and, try to make them just as clean and benign as possible. Those are really the main ingredients. And then, of course, if you check out our other liver support podcast episodes, you'll hear our other tips on, how to really deeply hydrate the liver and make sure the liver is getting all of the vitamins and minerals it needs to work properly.
Yeah. So we got a good question. We got a good question about, is it okay to eat healthy fats, i.e. avocado? Let's just clarify what healthy fat is. Every plant on planet Earth, rice, beans, bananas, potatoes, even like those quote unquote high carbohydrate plants, have fats. Yes, avocados have higher proportion of fats compared to those other starchier, more sugar-based foods. But in any event, healthy fats are any fats that are found in a whole food. So yeah, avocado is a healthy fat, quote unquote. Flax seeds, chia seeds are healthy fats. Bananas contain healthy fats. Spinach contains tons of healthy fats. So yes, when we are we really don't like to describe foods based on their predominant macronutrient. It's kind of reductionistic, but we do so for the purpose of having these sorts of conversations. But when we're relating and thinking about the foods that we're eating, we're just eating whole foods. And yes, any whole food that has more fat than other whole foods is a quote unquote healthy fat. But that being said, when we are living without a gallbladder, or when we are living to prevent gallbladder disease, or when we are living to optimize liver health, we do want to be mindful of those, what we would call overt fats that include avocado and nuts and seeds and cashews and et cetera. And we want to make sure that those foods, like, more or less just about fit in the palm of our hands, which would mean, maybe a whole avocado for the day, depending on the size.
Maybe or spaced out, not all at once.
or a quarter of an avocado with a couple tablespoons of seeds and a couple walnuts or olives or something like that. So, not overdoing it, because those fats, yeah, they're essential, but they're not the predominant fuel source for our bodies. They're also not the most nutrient dense foods that our bodies really rely upon. So yes, hopefully that clears up the healthy fat discussion for liver and gallbladder health.
Yeah. And would you agree also, Ben, that trying to avoid big servings of fat-rich foods, because those big servings, that's what really calls upon a lot of bile. More fat, the more bile you need.
I would say that even if someone like spoon-fed themselves guacamole, they probably couldn't induce a gallbladder attack, because they're not eating, the fat is being digested along with fiber and protein and sugar.
Yeah, but we're talking about post gallbladder removal.
Yeah, well, sure, that's not optimal for liver health. Yeah, so we're not going to have a gallbladder attack without a gallbladder, but it's not optimal for liver health
or fat digestion.
Yeah, but it's it's not going to kill. It's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
But we do want to focus on the more nutrient dense foods, which tend to be higher in carbohydrates and not fat. So that's just the thing. And oh boy, now we're getting all sorts of questions. We'll take one more. I mix chia.
Well, I think this is more of a comment.
Well, what about and use in smoothies with collagen powder? Oh no, that is a comment. But there is a question mark there. Yeah, in terms of collagen, maybe we would just point you to a podcast episode that we've done in the past on that.
Yes, we have a detailed episode on collagen powder.
But that's it for the questions. Hopefully you're thriving with or without a gallbladder and continue to do so. If you've got any other questions, comments, feedback, feel free to leave it in the chat or in the comments section. And thanks as always for tuning in.
And get ready for the next Whole Food Plant-Based Challenge. Yeah. We haven't yet opened registration, but we will in the next few days. This next challenge is on the topic of creating a resilient terrain. Ooh, what's that mean?
You're going to find out.
Yeah. But it has to do with also building robust immunity. So we hope to see you for our next Whole Food Plant-Based Challenge starting on November 1st.
Looking forward to it. So thanks as always for tuning in, and peace and love. And we'll see you guys next time.